About a year ago, I, 29 male, met a woman, 31 female, at a conference in Baltimore. I was only there for work, and I wasn't expecting our night together to evolve into anything else. But we hit it off, and after cooking up for the first time during the conference, we exchanged numbers, and we kept in touch. We lived about an hour away from each other, so it wasn't far enough to completely roll out a long-distance relationship. We didn't get to see each other often, but we would text and chat when we were both available. About once or twice a month, she would visit me in the city, and we would go out together. I loved seeing her. We had a wonderful connection, and I really felt like our relationship could go somewhere. However, in hindsight, I realized that I was putting more into the relationship than she was. I didn't think anything about our relationship until I was talking to a friend about us. I explained to her how my girlfriend would visit me, but I almost never visited her. Just to clarify, it wasn't for lack of trying. I had been vocal about wanting to travel to her apartment and meet her friends. My friend was a little weirded out by that. She said that it was odd that my girlfriend didn't want me to visit her. But at the same time, my friend is the type of person who listens to a lot of true crime and watches too much television. We both kind of laughed it off like she was assuming there was something more going on. But our conversation did get me thinking. I thought I knew my girlfriend from the conversations we had, but it was all surface level. I knew what television shows and books she liked, but I didn't know anything about her family. The next time I talked to her on the phone, I asked her more about herself. I wasn't asking in a way to accuse her of anything, but I genuinely wanted to learn more about her because I saw a future with her. She just told me that there wasn't much to talk about. She gave me a short story about being an only child and her parents having passed away. It made sense that if she didn't have any family around, she wouldn't bring it up, so I moved on. Months passed in our relationship and she still didn't want me to come visit her. It was difficult for me because I really wanted to meet her friends. By that point, she had met a few of mine and they really liked her. I wanted to see the city she lived in because I was considering suggesting that we move in together. No matter how many times I asked, she always shut down the idea of me visiting. I didn't think much about it at the time, but all of our conversations were very sexual. Whenever we would be together, we would go to dinner or bar, then we would go right back to my apartment and sleep together. I kind of just thought that it was because we were apart for so long, but after a while, the lack of depth with our conversations was getting to me. I was talking to another friend about her, just venting some of my frustrations, and he mentioned that I might be a side piece. I was very shocked to hear that and honestly kind of hurt. At the time, I felt like I had something special with her, and hearing that it might have been less than I thought was awful. He pointed out all of the facts and told me that if she's very secretive about her life, it probably means that there's something she doesn't want me to know. That thing might have been that she had a partner, possibly family. I couldn't believe that. There was no chance in hell that was the case. I actually got kind of mad at my friend for even suggesting that, so I went home and I stewed on it for a while. When my anger subsided, I started to see some merit to the point he was making. I went online to read other stories about people who were unknowingly sleeping with committed people, and a lot of my circumstances aligned. I had asked my girlfriend early on in the relationship for her social media so we could add each other, but she just told me she didn't have any. She then proceeded to tell me all about how vile she thought it was, so I believed her. However, after looking online for her, I found her profiles. She had lied about having social media, so she wouldn't have to add me to them. When I clicked on the Facebook link from Google, I realized that I was blocked. She was definitely trying to hide something from me. I made a fake account and I searched for her again just so I could see for myself what she was hiding. Just from the public view of her profile, I could see that she was married and seemed to be happy from the looks of it. There was a young child in a few of the photos. I didn't know if it was hers or what. I found her husband's name through her profile and I started looking at his. From what I could gather, they have been together since high school. I had my suspicions something was going on and I finally had an answer. Honestly, I kind of regretted looking into it. Before that, I had a great relationship with someone that I didn't feel guilty about. After looking at it, I couldn't help but feel like I was a bad person. I knew that I didn't know about her family, but I was still sleeping with her. Right away, I knew that I was going to end everything with her, but it didn't feel right to let her get away with cheating. I needed to think of some way to tell her husband and also teach her a lesson about what she did. Through looking at his social media, I could tell that he was a realtor. I reached out to him and I set up a meeting to have a conversation with him. I said I was interested in buying a house, but of course, that was a lie. I made sure our meeting was going to be during a time when my girlfriend wasn't in the house because I didn't want her to find out about it. When the time for the meeting came, we spent a few minutes chatting with each other while I tried to decide if I actually had the nerve to tell him everything. I didn't know if that would be the end for them. I hoped that it would be because she had betrayed their marriage by being with me. After a few minutes, I confessed that I wasn't there to buy a house. I told him about how I met his wife and about the affair that ensued after, making sure he knew that I knew nothing about him and his family. He was as shocked as I was about the news. He told me something else that shocked me too. Apparently, she had been working weekends every week. She told him that it was only temporary while she was onboarding and training some new managers for work. After I told him about our relationship, he insinuated she was visiting me every weekend, but that wasn't the case. I honestly had to wonder if there was another person she was having an affair with. I only saw her once or twice a month. I sent him a bunch of screenshots and videos from our chats. I felt horrible when he was reading them in front of me. He told me that he was going to figure out what to do with them and he thanked me for being honest with him. I spent the rest of the day feeling sick to my stomach after the conversation. I genuinely believed that she had another person that she was sleeping with. 2 days later, she called me and was immediately irate. Apparently, I had no business digging around in her life after she had made it clear she didn't want me to. I ruined her marriage and I was the worst thing that ever happened to her. I was shocked that she was blaming me for what happened. It was her choice to lie to her husband and have an affair. If I would have known that she was married, I would have never pursued her. Honestly, the fact that she wasn't even wearing her ring during the conference said enough. After I got off the phone with her, I haven't heard from her since. Her husband, on the other hand, did end up divorcing her and he told me that she's living with her mom until she finds a new place. I couldn't help but laugh hearing that because it made me think about how she told me her parents were dead. I'm honestly just really glad I'm past this part of my life. I'm hoping I can meet someone who is truly single and be happy. OP, it's such a shame to hear that somebody would throw away their marriage like that. We don't hear a lot of this perspective either. Your friends were right to be suspicious about your girlfriend's intentions and motives. It took you a while to listen to them, but it's a good thing that you came around. Sometimes it's difficult to see the signs when they're in your face because you can be so blinded by love, but from what it seems like, these were all telltale signs of a person living a double life. It's really awful how she lied about her family being dead too. That's not something you want to put out into the universe, and to make such a bold lie to keep your affair going is just wrong. I really hope that she does some reflecting on herself and realizes her behavior is unacceptable and can work on herself moving forward. I wish you the best in your future endeavors and I hope you can find someone who is more honest with you. Now let's move on to our next story. My wife and I met when we were both working in the same office building 7 years ago. She was working a few floors below me and we would often ride on the elevator together when we got to work. I always thought that she was cute, but I was a little nervous to say anything. As it happened, one Saturday I had to run into the office to grab some things. When I was leaving, I got on the elevator and she was there. Without anybody else around, we struck up some conversation and I jumped on the opportunity to ask her out. Things got serious with us pretty quickly when she got pregnant about a year into our relationship. It wasn't the end of the world for us. It was unexpected, sure, but there was some excitement there as well. Don't get me wrong, now that our son is here we both love him more than anything in the world, but if we could have had him at a different time, we would have. We had some struggles in the first couple of years of our marriage because I think we both felt like we were forced into it. Even through all of that, I never doubted that she was the one. We both loved each other and we were dedicated to working through our problems. As we got older, things slowed down for us. She was able to quit her job to focus on raising our son and I was doing very well at work. One of my coworkers tragically passed away unexpectedly, and while my entire office was mourning the loss, we had to pick up the work left behind. After their death, I had taken on a large sum of their workload. Because of that, I was spending long nights in the office, going in on weekends and even on some holidays. I cared a lot about my work and I wanted to make sure everything was getting taken care of, plus I thought there might be an opportunity for growth if I continued putting the work in. My sex life with my wife virtually died when that happened. It's not at all like I wanted it to be, but I was so exhausted after every day that the thought never even crossed my mind. I wanted to go home and eat dinner then sleep. It wasn't for lack of trying on my wife's part either. She would tell me that she wanted us to spend more time together and I would promise her that we would after everything was finished with work. I know that none of this is exactly my fault, but if I were to take any of the blame for what happened, it would be my work. Projects that were supposed to take weeks took months and I was overworking myself to the point of being physically ill sometimes. I hit my breaking point with work when I realized that I had worked for 22 days without a single day off. I spoke to my boss and I told him about everything I'd been doing. He assured me that my work hadn't gone unnoticed. He gave me a handsome bonus and I cashed out a week of vacation to take some time to relax. I was excited to be able to decompress at home with my family. However, when I was home and doing nothing, I had all the time and the things that were off with my wife. As much as she wanted us to be intimate just weeks before, she didn't seem to be interested when I was free. Of course, I didn't want to pressure her or push her, so just let it slide. She had been spending a lot of time at the gym working out. I hadn't even noticed the changes in her until I was on my vacation. She had toned up a lot of her body, she got her hair done, and she had a lot of mirror clothes. I asked her why she had changed so much and she got mad at me for only just noticing, but then she told me that she just wanted to feel more confident. I tried to assure her that I thought she was beautiful either way, but I told her that she looked great. During the week, I honestly got a little bored without having anything to do. Tax season was coming up, so I started going through my banking information to prepare. As I was going through, I found some strange charges that I wasn't familiar with. Almost everything I saw was accountable and recognizable in my bank statement except for these few charges. I didn't know what they were, so I googled the charge name to see what came up and I thought maybe that would jog my memory. What I discovered was that it was a charge for a website called Ashley Madison. When I first heard the name, it sounded familiar. I knew I had heard it somewhere before and initially, I thought it was some kind of hair care thing my wife must have gotten. However, when I looked up what it really was, I found out that it was a website for married people to find others interested in affairs. My heart shattered when I read that. I knew that I wasn't the one who subscribed to it. My wife had paid to use an app that would set her up with another person betraying their marriage. I needed to see for myself if she was actively having one. I made an account on the website, making a fake profile to snoop around. Unsurprisingly, there were a lot of other accounts that were clearly fake and fishing for information on the users. After some looking, I found my wife. She had pictures of herself showing her face completely. Anybody that knew her would instantly recognize it was her if they saw it. She was barely being discreet about wanting an affair. On top of that, in some of the pictures, she was wearing very little clothes. She was clearly showing off her body to potential affair partners. She stated in her profile that she was looking for fun because she felt like I was ignoring her. I was furious and heartbroken all at the same time. It was very confusing to understand where she was coming from by saying she felt like she was being ignored. I knew that I had been working a lot, but it was out of my control a lot of the time. I took the opportunity to message her and flirt with her to see if she would react. I told her that it was such a shame that her husband was ignoring her because she was flawless and he didn't know what he was missing. Not long after I sent the message, she replied. She was fully responding to every advance. She was being extremely sexual too. She was asking me for pictures, offering to send some in return. I knew then that this wasn't her first conversation on the website. If she hadn't been talking to other men like this, just how far had it gone? When she got home, I pretended like I knew nothing. She had just got back from the gym, so she was hopping in the shower. I took that opportunity to look for the app on her phone and see what she'd been saying. When I found it, I saw dozens of messages between her and other men. The most shocking part of it all was seeing men that she and I both knew talking to her. They were our son's friends' parents, people in the neighborhood, and some people I even worked with. I had no idea that many people would be using a website like this, but we live in a pretty messed up world. One of the guys in our neighborhood that she had been messaging had told her he was fantasizing about her for a long time before he saw her on the app. She said that she felt the same way. From all the messages that I read, it seemed like this was the only person she had made plans to meet up with. It was clear from the context of their messages that they had slept together and were planning on doing it again. On top of that, I found messages with another man that led me to believe that my wife was considering meeting up with him. Right away, I knew that I needed to catch her in the act. She and I married so hastily that there wasn't a prenuptial agreement or anything of the sort. I needed to catch her and get evidence, and then I could proceed with a divorce. So, I used my catfish profile to the best of my ability. The good thing about being married to my wife for as long as I was is that I knew exactly what to say to her to get her to fall for me. Within a few days of me using the app, she was willing to meet up with me. I gave her an address to a hotel and told her to meet me there. I was honestly kind of shocked when she agreed. It was extremely risky to meet up with a strange man on the internet, and she was willing to throw everything away for it. She had no idea who I was. Meanwhile, I had reached out to the wife of the man she slept with and I told her everything. She was hysterical when I showed her what I found. I calmed her down and I convinced her that we needed to think logically and we needed to catch them. I helped her make a fake profile too when we were able to convince her husband to meet at the same hotel. Our plan was in motion and all we had to do was confront them both. The time came and we left room keys for both of them at the front desk and told them to grab them and head up. My wife arrived first and she messaged me to tell me that she was waiting in the room and attached a picture of her in her lingerie. The guy she had been sleeping with arrived next and was clearly shocked to see my wife there. After a minute of them being in the room alone together, both his wife and I went and joined them. When we opened the door, both of them were silent as they watched us. My wife grabbed the blanket from the bed and tried to cover herself because she was half naked. They tried to act like we were in the wrong for catfishing them, but they didn't have a leg to stand on. I told my wife that I was done with her and that she had really broken my heart with her actions. I could tell that she felt guilty about it and she tried to once again put the blame on me for ignoring her when I was working. I told her that didn't excuse what she did. Both I and my neighbor's wife filed for divorce not long after that. We had mountains of evidence of their affairs against them. Apparently he had been with many women since downloading the app. I was able to come out on top during the divorce. My wife didn't work, so spousal support was the biggest argument that we had, but my lawyer was able to get me out of payments. I got custody of our son, but she has visitations of him. The reasoning for that was that she was so easily convinced to meet up with a stranger online. They were able to convince someone that she could potentially bring a harmful person home. I feel like I'm picking up and starting anew with my life now. It's daunting, but I'm honestly glad that I found out about her true colors before we were 15 years into our marriage. Opie, I'm so sorry you had to go through something like that. It seems like you were really being worked to the bone after your coworker's death and your wife should have been there to make sure you're okay. Instead, she was looking for an affair. Having an affair is bad enough, but knowingly having an affair with another married person is awful. One person's selfish actions have to end two marriages. It is a little concerning that she met up with a complete stranger at a hotel. Thankfully it turned out to be you and not some lunatic, but it's a dangerous world and you can't be too careful. It's good that it was recognized during the custody hearings. It was a good thing that you did tell the wife of the man she was having an affair with. She deserved to know that her husband was using a website like Ashley Madison. Honestly, I think the existence of websites like that is disgusting, and anybody who is using it, regardless of if they have met up with anybody, is a terrible person. I wish you the best moving forward with your son and I hope you're able to move on from this. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate